All right, welcome back, guys. Today is division. And the thing is, I don't want to call it division of fractions. Because as soon as you say the word fractions, what does everybody do? They start freaking out, they quarantine themselves, they lock themselves in their houses, they start screaming into the woods. Fractions scare us, right? It's just, we're not used to those little bitty pieces. So, you know what let's do today is let's just call it division. And if we just call it division, maybe by the time we start looking at fractions, it won't feel so hard, okay? I am Mr. Courtney. This is my dog who is not ready to do fractions. I am here, this is me, and I am ready to do fractions. And let's get back to the lesson. So the first thing I want you guys to imagine a scenario, and this is not hard to imagine because you know how much I like to steal cookies. And before we start, let's just say what everybody's going to tell me. They're gluten-free, okay? So, back off, right? There's 4 cookies. All right, we're going to imagine all these different scenarios where I have got 4 cookies, okay? 4 cookies, 4 cookies, 4 cookies, 4 cookies. You get the idea, okay? Now, before we look at these scenarios over here, the one thing I want you to remember, as I always say in class, is that math is a language. If you speak the language, then you understand the math. And if you don't speak the language, you can do all kinds of funny stuff. And you might get the answers right a lot of the time, but it doesn't mean you know what you're doing. And so let's remind ourselves, this little symbol here means 2 things, okay, that are important. It means a lot of things, but 2 things come to mind. The first is that the dot on the top means that this number goes on the top, where that dot is. And this dot on the bottom means that this number goes on the bottom where that dot is. And so when you look at it that way, this is suddenly 4 over 4. And 4 over 4 is a whole. So suddenly, just by looking at it a different way, we're able to see something we didn't before. The second thing I want you to remember is that this symbol has a very easy catchphrase. And if you'll remember this, all of these problems are going to feel much easier. Today's catchphrase, the way we're going to phrase it, is that we're going to call it put into groups of. And I know that's a really strange thing to say, put into groups of. But I want you to say it exactly like that, even though it sounds so weird to say. So we're going to say it like this: 4 put into groups of 4. This one is going to be 4 put into groups of 2, 4 put into groups of 3, 4 put into groups of 1, 4 put into groups of a half. Haha, you can see what I'm doing there with fractions. 4 put into groups of a fourth. And then this crazy one, 4 put into groups of 3.5. And in case your mind is about to explode, okay, don't let it explode. Just remember that I'm always trying to challenge you. And so I want you to know that if this bottom one, I think the rest you'll get to, but if this bottom one just like absolutely makes your mind want to implode, like that scene from the latest Star Wars where like they were on the snowy planet and the whole thing just blew up from the inside, okay? If it happens like that, don't worry. This is a total challenge. All right, but let's get to it. So if I read it this way, 4 put into groups of 4, okay? So let's say Mr. Courtney's got his 4 cookies, all right? And I put them into groups of 4. Well, I'm going to take all 4 cookies, just like the language says, and I'm going to put them into groups of 4. Well, how many groups did I make? The answer is I made 1. If I take 4 cookies and I package them into a group of 4, I get 1. Okay, and look at that. Just like I'm thinking in my model, 4 over 4, we all know is a 1 in disguise. So that works out. What about this next scenario? 4 put into groups of 2, and force yourself not to say divided by, okay? because we're going to think about this a little differently today. So 4 put into groups of 2. Well, let's take a look at this guy over here, okay? So I've got 4, and I'm going to put them into groups of 2. So I'm going to take these 2 cookies, I'm going to package them up. These will be the cookies I eat when I go fishing in my boat. And then I'll take this group of 2 and I'll package them. And let's face it, Oreo's probably going to eat those when I'm not looking. So if I take 4 and I put them into groups of 2, how many packages did I make? My answer is 2. And of course, you knew that because you survived 3rd grade. And in 3rd grade, you learned that 4 divided by 2 was 2, okay? If you were thinking about it as a 4th grader, you probably put the 4 on top and you probably put the 2 on the bottom, and you thought 4 divided by 2 or 4 over 2 is an improper fraction. Either way, it still works out. But what about this one? What do you get when you have 4 and you put them into groups of 3? Now this is a little different, because if I have 4 and I put them into groups of 3, I see here I can make one group, but I can't make another. And so that tells me, but I do have some left over. And that tells me that my answer has to be between 1 and 2. And I'm guessing that it's a lot closer to 1 than it is to 2, because I would need another 2 cookies to make a whole second package. And that tells me my answer is probably going to be a mixed number. I'm going to guess it's going to be about 1.5, although I still don't think it's a half, because this 1 cookie doesn't make a half a package. So I'm going to be on the lookout for that. I know my answer is between 1 and 2. And remember, all we're doing today is thinking and doing some estimation. So maybe you think you have the actual answer. If you do, I would love to see it. Okay? So I'm going to say that this is about 1.5. And again, if you have an actual answer, feel free. But what if I have 4 and I put them into groups of 1? Well, that's easy, because that's kind of what we normally do, right? For example, I know Andrew will have a package of cookies for lunch, but I know what he does. He puts them in his backpack, and then while he's doing his math, he sneaks one out at a time. And that gives him energy to solve his math problems. We've all seen him do it. Yeah. And if he has 4 and he puts them into groups of 1, he gets 4 little tasty snacks that helps power his thinking during math. And don't worry, Andrew's allowed to do that in our class. It's not like he's doing anything wrong. Now, but what about this 4 put into groups of a half? Now, this is when you are really stingy with your cookies. And I'm trying to think of somebody who would do this. I'm thinking Olivia might do this, because if she gets a sweet treat, she usually only eats a little bit of it. And this would mean that she would take a half of the cookie and package it. She would take a half of a cookie and package it. And then she's going to keep doing that. She's going to take half of her cookies and package them, half of each cookie. And I know what you're thinking, because if you're me, you're like, dude, I either eat the whole cookie or don't. But some people cannot handle sweets, okay? They eat like a half a cookie, and that's good. And then they save the other half. I don't know who those people are, but they do it. So if I had 4 cookies and I put them into groups of a half a cookie each, how many groups would I get? Well, let's count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And that makes a lot of sense, because if I have halves, then every whole should give me 2. And 2, 2, 2, and 2 is 8. Now, but what about this one right here? Oh my God, could you imagine somebody doing this? Like, this person really, I guess, does not like sweets, okay? They literally take their cookies and they only eat a fourth at a time. Do you know anybody like that? My mom was that way. She would only eat about a fourth of cookie at a time. She could not handle sweets. I thought it was so crazy when she would tell me she didn't even like chocolate. It was nuts. But if she did that, if she ate 1/4, 1/4, 1/4, how many fourths would she be able to eat in 4 wholes? Well, 4, 4, 4, 4. She'd be able to snack 16 times. Okay? So far, these probably make pretty decent sense. If they don't, ask me questions in the comments and I'll come back to the video. But let's take this challenge down here. This time I've got something a little nutty. I've got 4 cookies and I'm going to put them into packages of 3.5. Now, I don't know why we would do that, but let's say that 3.5 cookies was exactly what we wanted. And we wanted to know how many packages we could make. Well, I'm sure you can all think like me that you're only going to get 1 package out of that. How do I know that? Because there's no way I can make another package with a half of a cookie. So I'm going to get 1 package. But see this little bit right here? That tells me that I'm going to have a fraction. It's going to be 1 and a fraction. And this little half is so small compared to what the next package would be, right? Because think about what else I would need. I would 3 more whole cookies. That tells me that this fraction's got to be really small. Now, I don't know what it would be. It might be 1/8. It might be 1 1/6. It might be 1 1/10. Whatever it is, it's going to be really small, okay? So, to review, what we've done today is we've thought about what division actually means, and we've done something that's pretty cool. We've actually used division along with fractions in some cases to think about what's going on. So here is your challenge. Okay, and I will take a picture of this and post it in the comments section. So take a look at these. Notice I gave you 2 challenge problems. I think they're crazy, but I'm just wondering who could do that. And if you notice here, I want you to think about this times 6. Now, if you want, you can call them something else. Don't call them cookies. We've been talking about cookies like this whole week. Probably because I have so much Girl Scout stuff in my life, but feel free to call them whatever you want. Maybe we should call them asparagus or artichokes, something healthy. But go ahead and write those down. Draw them out in the model as circles and see what you can make of them, okay? I look forward to seeing your solutions in the comment section below. Have a great day. I will see you later for writing, okay? Don't drive your parents too crazy. Mr. Courtney, out.